students, and congratulations to all of you for getting accepted and kind of keeping Ohio State in the running for hopefully your next place and your next home for the next 4 years. So we're really glad that we were able to be flexible, and we have a couple of medical students here from all 4 years, and we're really looking forward to just kind of telling you a little bit about ourselves, about our university, and answer any lingering questions you guys have. So if we're all ready to go, I guess we can kind of run through all the medical students. Just everyone kind of introduce yourself, maybe some of your interests, what you're involved in, and what year you are.
All right, I guess I'll go first. So I'm Varun. I'm a third-year med student. So I guess what I'm involved in. So I guess through the school, I'm involved with the admissions committee. But outside of school, we really have chance to do a lot of hobbies here. So I'm into rock climbing and Krav Maga, which is fun. I'm applying into neurosurgery whenever this next cycle starts, whenever that may be. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me. I went here for undergrad, so I know a little too much about OSU if you want to know anything.
I guess I'll go next. My name is Jennifer Atkindero. I'm a second year here at the College of Medicine. In terms of things that I do here at OSU, I was the president of the Student National Medical Association for the 2019-2020 school year. I'm also involved in admissions committee as well. I'm also a part of La Clínica Latina, which is the Spanish-speaking free clinic that is run by OSU med students. What else do I do? Oh yeah, like hobbies and things like that. I like to travel whenever I get the chance, as well as I really like live music, as well as watching movies. So I clearly haven't been doing a lot of that in terms of going out at this point. I'm also currently studying for step 1. So that's been an interesting development during this pandemic, but yeah, nice to meet everyone.
I can go next. My name's Hannah Gibbs. I'm also a second year, also trying to study for step 1 right now. Things that I've been involved with, I was the president of Women in Medicine. I see Annie Orr is on here. I know she's on the current committee. I was also a steering committee member for Nor Community Clinic, which is another free clinic. OSU has a lot of free clinics. I think we have one almost every day of the week, which is pretty awesome. Things I do for fun. Like Varun, I went to Ohio State. I was on the equestrian team here, so I still try to ride when I can, but mostly just exercise. So nice to see you all.
I can go next. My name's Kenny. Like Varun, I'm also a third year. Let's see, I'm planning into anesthesia this cycle, like Varun said, whenever all this things happen, who knows. Things I'm involved in school, I like with Kyle, I'm on the student council. I've been on student council for about 3 years now. I'm also involved in like the academic committees. So we work with the different administration to talk about what changes need to be done for our students and how we can better prepare them for boards and for residency in the future. In my free time, very avid Fortnite and Call of Duty person, especially now with all this free time. It's been a lot of it, too much time playing with my PlayStation, but otherwise it's been pretty chill. Also love music. I'm an avid blues guitarist, and that's about it.
Okay, I can go next. I'm Annie. I'm an M1 here, and like Hannah said, I'm currently on the Women in Medicine Executive Board. I also have a couple positions with the, we have student interest groups for each specialty. So I have a couple positions with like cardiothoracic surgery, with the neurosurgery interest group. And then I also, for when you guys come to Ohio State, because you're all going to come to Ohio State because it's great here. I am going to probably be on the committee that's going to set you guys up with mentors and mentees. So when you guys come here, everyone would be set up with a mentor, and my class, just kind of to show you the ropes and have someone a year ahead of you just to kind of talk to. So hopefully I'll be on that too.
I think I'm the last one. I'm Rachel. I'm from Columbus, Ohio, and actually went to the University of Virginia for undergrad. Now I am a fourth year about to graduate Ohio State and just matched into Durham here at OSU. So can speak to how awesome Ohio State is as a place and some other activities that I do outside of med school. We have a great food scene in Columbus, lots of new restaurants. And then also our sports are awesome. So big Ohio State fan. Ohio State football's really fun. And then we have the Columbus Blue Jackets, which is an NHL hockey team, and the Columbus Crew, which is a MLS soccer team. So there's lots to do depending on your interests here. So turn it back over to Kyle.
Yeah, and I guess I never actually introduced myself. I'm Kyle. I'm a M1 here at Ohio State. I did my undergrad here at OSU, liked it so much I decided I'd stick around for a second turn of 4 years. But I'm pretty heavily involved in the men's health interest group. So we're trying to kind of promote getting men to actually come and get their problems checked out, both mental health as well as like preventable cancers. And I'm also pretty heavily involved in the orthopedic surgery department and the orthopedic surgery interest group here at Ohio State. I mean, there were a lot of things that really led me to coming back to Ohio State. I really love Columbus as a city, but also really just the culture here. You could tell the people were really studying hard and working hard and learning all the material, but they were just genuinely enjoying their time here as well. And they were really forming those connections that were going to last a lifetime. So that's really kind of me and what really led me to Ohio State. So I guess this was probably something we should have thrown in right at the beginning, but I mean, kind of the most obvious first starting off question to hear from everyone is really what led you to your decision? I mean, there's a lot of different ways that people can pick what medical school is right for them, but I guess just pitching this out to all the medical students, what really led you to Ohio State?
So I can go first again. Maybe we can keep the same order so we're not jumping in front of everyone, I guess. But yeah, so I picked Ohio State essentially because of a lot of things that Kyle said. You know, you have a lot of people who, you know, everyone here works hard and they really are about academics, but, you know, we everyone gets along well. We do things outside of school together. During M1 and M2, you know, me and Kenny, we used to work out together some days of the week. And then we had other people who we would also see at the gym, and we'd hang out with them outside of school. And so also there's a lot of good things to do in Columbus. Always something going on, or even if there's not anything formally going on, you know, there's something to do with your free time. So like I said, there's rock climbing, or Short North always has a bunch of things. And like Rachel said, the food scene is awesome. But I liked Ohio State in general, just because of a lot of the amenities it has. You know, the gyms are great, close proximity to the med school as well. And when you look at the hospital, I mean, we have every single residency program, which is something that some med schools don't have. So it really kind of gives you the opportunity to look into all the specialties if you're really unsure about what you want to do. And then also we're a huge research institution. That was something big for me. So I wanted to be a part of that. So I've been able to do a lot of research here. But yeah, those are just some of the reasons why I chose.
I guess I'll go next. So I am from the East Coast. I'm from the DC metropolitan area. So I was a bit intrigued by the fact that I had like friends who really decided to sort of transplant themselves from the East Coast, from the DC area to the Midwest. So knowing that I had people from the area that I'm from that came here and really liked it here was really encouraging as well. And then a big reason why I chose Ohio State was also the amazing experience that I had on my interview day. That was really important for me to feel like I could really get a real understanding of the institution that I was interviewing at and what the people were like and what the experience might be like. So I really enjoyed my interview day here at OSU. And then one of the things that also really intrigued me about this school and that really helped make my decision was the multitude of sort of early clinical experiences that we could have here, especially with the variety of different free clinics that we have. I have a degree in Spanish, so I was really interested in working with Spanish-speaking populations. And immediately as an M1, I was able to do that by working as the referrals coordinator for La Clínica Latina. And as Hannah said earlier, there's basically a free clinic for every and any sort of patient population or need, whether it is the Columbus Free Clinic, which is sort of an all-around free clinic, the Women's Free Clinic, the NOR Clinic. There's a clinic for Asian populations and all sorts of people, different populations and different needs. So that was really a big pull for me to come here, because I wanted to make sure that I would be able to experience different types of patients and different needs of different patient populations. So that was a big thing for me.
Okay, so even though I went to Ohio State for undergrad, I think I didn't really expect to go to OSU for med school. I don't know if I didn't think it was attainable or just kind of wanted to move, but I ended up liking it so much more than I thought I would, especially the interview day. It became pretty apparent that OSU has kind of unparalleled resources. The Wexner, like Burton said, we have so many different residency programs and so many opportunities in different areas to learn. But we also have access to Nationwide Children's Hospital, which is one of the best children's hospitals in the country. So we basically have open access to Nationwide Children's as well. Obviously, it's a separate institution, but medical students are very welcome there. And I spent the summer there doing research and met some awesome people. But I really just, I really like the vibe I got from Ohio State. All the students seemed really happy and everyone seemed to get along, which I can attest to. I haven't noticed any issues in the 2 years that I've been here. Everyone is supporting one another. And then the mentorship is really great. I have a few close mentors, and I feel like in undergrad it was always hard to find people to advocate for you, but the physicians here want you to succeed. And there have been many times where I felt like physicians went above and beyond and like out of their way to help me. So I really appreciate about that about OSU, and that's one great thing about it here. So
I guess it's my turn. Like Jennifer was saying, I really had a good interview day here. I don't know if you can all remember, but when you're eating lunch, you have all the students who come in and come chat with you. And I just remember like vibing with a lot of them. It was like, okay, like these guys seem pretty chill. My thought of med school was everyone was like super uptight and like really just wanted to study and whatever. But everyone seemed pretty down to earth. They like to do a lot of things that I like to do, work out, spend time with friends, go explore, have a beer or two occasionally on the weekend. Not that you have to, but like it's kind of nice. But I had a really good day. My interviewers were really nice and they gave me a lot of information that kind of helped me steer that decision to OSU. But I also really liked getting the early exposure to clinic. So we start LP in October of your first year, and not a lot of the other schools I was looking at had that really early clinical experience. And going through undergrad, doing all the research and all the extracurricular stuff that you have to do just to get to medical school, you want to be at the point where you can start to feel like a medical student, kind of start feel like being a fake doctor. So I want to start seeing patients, and being able to do that in October, a couple months into med school, not knowing a whole lot, but at least getting that fresh exposure of having an attending send you into a room to go talk to a real life actual patient with real problems, really paid off. And I think being in third year now, going through all the trials and tribulations of third year, all the different experiences, having that really early clinical experience was really nice.
Okay, it's my turn. So I'm from Cincinnati, and when I was looking for medical schools, I kind of applied all over the place. But Ohio State really stuck out to me, mostly because of the student population. I feel like Ohio State does a really, really good job of picking some just great people to be a part of the class. And that was really apparent on my interview day, as well as second look, which unfortunately we're trying to create that for you guys, but it's not the same virtually, but hopefully we can help you guys out. But I just thought there were some really great people. And even in the administration, there's some really, really great people. And one thing that I constantly heard was that OSU actually cares about our feedback. And makes changes based off of what we say, which I've seen. Like, I'm an M1, I haven't been here for super, super long compared to some of the other guys on here, but like, even my time here, I can tell that they value our feedback and what we think, which I thought was very special about Ohio State. So that's, as well as the Buckeye Pride was really, really strong. The alumni network is great, and everyone is just so excited to be a part of Ohio State. Like, there you go, Ohio State. But yeah, I don't know. It was just a really good feeling that I had.
So I would echo everything that everyone else has said. I think one of my biggest decision points was just the gut feeling I got on interview day. And then I can kind of speak to going into residency, things you might not think about when you're just starting medical school, but on numerous interviews around the country, different programs spoke to how well Ohio State graduates do in residency, and they're always very excited to get Ohio State applicants. So I think coming here for medical school really sets you up to do whatever specialty you would want to do, which might not be the case at every single medical school. So we have diverse clinical exposure, faculty who are super interested in education, teaching, there to help you as much as possible, and then also a great collegial community with all of the students. And I appreciated how most students like to do things in medicine as well as outside of medicine. So you get a really, really good balance here at Ohio State.
Sorry, it remuted me. So that's awesome. We're all here for you guys, and we're really here for any questions that you have. So if anyone is more than welcome to unmute and ask questions on the video feed, or we also have the chat window that all of us have open so we can see the questions there. So we'll have kind of a couple of people that'll be able to answer any given question that you have about the whole curriculum, really. We can either answer it kind of in person, or we'll also be keeping track of the chat. So really anything you guys have for us, feel free to ask. We're here for you.
Yeah, speaking about the curriculum, being that it's like 18 months, how do you guys have like free time to do other things like research or just have fun if you're like having that expedited curriculum?
So, go for it.
Okay. So I'm in the. Sorry, it was on the chat and kept typing space bars. But I feel like it's not, like, you can definitely, it's demanding, it's a demanding curriculum, but I feel like if there's something that you find important, it's really easy to make time for it. So like, I play board games every weekend because I love board games, and I kind of prioritize that because it helps me relieve stress. And like, I'm in the middle of endo repro right now, and I'm still doing like 3 research projects, and I'm involved with a bunch of different student orgs. Like, I haven't found it to be too demanding to a point where I can't do other things that I want to do.
So what does like a typical day look like for you guys as an M1?
So, I mean, I can speak about what my typical day looks like. Kyle, I'm sure you can talk about yours too. But typically, so our lectures are recorded, which is really, really nice because I personally don't function very well at 8 a.m. in the morning. I learn a lot better in the afternoon. So I'll like get up at like 9, 10. And then start going through my lectures. I'll do some reviews. I use a lot of Anki, which is like a flashcard app. So I kind of mix up what I'm doing between like Anki and watching lectures and reviewing. And then I'll put little breaks in the middle just to like get lunch or go take a walk or do really whatever I want to do. But I am pretty much studying until like 10 every night, but again, like I put a bunch of breaks in the middle, so I'm not going crazy just studying for like 12 hours in a row. So there's definitely, like, that's what my days typically look like.
Yeah, I'd say that mine's pretty similar. Usually we have like in-person lectures that are recorded in the mornings, and then we'll have pre-recorded lectures that happen in the afternoons. So usually I am not a lecture goer, so I'll watch the pre-recorded lectures in the morning while the in-person lectures are happening. And usually by the time I finish those, the morning lectures have already been put online, so then I can just watch those in the afternoon. And then I just kind of do Anki throughout the day, just kind of getting through flashcards, making new flashcards based off of the material that we're pulling in. I kind of study all day too, but I do a lot of other things. So it's not like I'm just sitting down for 15 hours a day every day and all I do is stare at my laptop. More, it's I'll do a couple hours of studying and then I might go do something else. Then I'll do another couple hours of studying and then I'll take a break to do something that I enjoy or work out, or I do a lot of work with admissions or those kinds of things. So, I mean, you're always busy, but you kind of fit in the things that are important to you.
Thank you.
Hi. Kind of along the same lines with the curriculum, do you guys have times where you meet as groups throughout the day too, kind of team-based learning kind of thing?
So we don't have daily team-based learning. We have weekly, you'll have LG, which is like your How to Be a Doctor class. So you'll have that every week from all throughout M1 until February of M2. Then you have a small group, which is like team-based learning, and that the frequency of that depends on the block that you're in. So longer blocks will have more small groups, which are basically like case-based learning with a physician that is just sort of helping you get like a broader picture of the material that you're studying for that particular block, excuse me. And then you'll also have there's LG, there's small group, what else TBLs, excuse me. TBLs are team-based learning, and those usually in a regular block, for example, like endo rebro that the M1s are in right now, is usually maybe like 2 or 3. And it consists of like a short quiz in the beginning and like a team-based learning exercise, like case-based learning. And you're in that same group for all of your TBLs from all throughout M1 to M2. So there definitely are different sort of team-based learning exercises or team-based learning experiences interspersed throughout the curriculum. You'll be meeting, it's every week you'll have LG, but in terms of TBLs or small groups, those aren't every week.
Thank you.
I will answer the research question posted by, I can't remember who. Oh, Hannah Sorensen. So, and this kind of applies to a lot of us here. So, your research, I guess it depends. If you do research and you get something out of it, it doesn't matter really what specialty it's in, especially if it was early on. But say, like, for example, so I'm interested in neurosurgery. So say, for example, last minute I switched to ortho or something like that. My current neurosurgery research still counts for something, but I would also want to show at that point, personally, I would want to show at that point that I want to do ortho work as well. So I'd try to get on an ortho project, but it doesn't mean like, even if you switch from like peds to like ENT or vice versa, whatever research you've done still counts for something. That's from what I've been told. I don't know if Rachel has any other experiences from that, but that's just all I've been told.
Yeah, so I guess just speaking from interviews again, they even asked about my M1, M2 research in neurosurgery. And I totally decided derm like end of 3rd year. So as long as you have meaningful projects you can talk about and how you contributed, to that project, did you see it through from start to finish? That's kind of the things they've cared about. And there are plenty of opportunities. I think starting M1 year, you can even get a scholarship in the summer between M1 and M2 to do research, which a lot of med students opt to do. And then that sets you up to reach out to more faculty because you have research experience, et cetera. So it doesn't necessarily need to be in your field 1st and 2nd year, but I think as you start to make your decisions, it's helpful to start asking about research in the field you're interested in.
And then I guess also to answer some of the other questions we've gotten about how realistic is it to do research during part one, like as an M1 or an M2? I think it's really realistic. I mean, I've been doing research here since I was an M1, and I was still able to, do good work on projects and still have fun and still study and, do well in school. So I think it all depends on time allocation, and obviously don't start something right away because you need to get used to med school. It's like, that term drinking from a fire hose is very real. But I think once you kind of have your feet under you, it's not a bad idea to start on something if you want to. Don't feel like you have to. But it's totally manageable.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that. Oh, go ahead, Anna.
Oh, are you sure? You can go.
Thanks. I also agree that it's definitely very realistic. You can definitely do research during your M1 year. I know a lot of people who did. I chose to wait until the summer between M1 and M2 to do research. And it really just depends, like Varun said, on like making sure that you're allocating your time correctly. So even if you do get on a research project, let's say in like October of your M1 year, making sure that you're very clear about like the time that you have and trying to understand, like being realistic with yourself, about what a project is going to require of you. If the researcher and the physician that you're working with is like, we need you to do like 10, 15 hours a week on this project, you've got to decide, like, do you really have that time? So being able to like make a smart decision in the type of project that you want to do whilst you're in school is really important. And if you decide that, well, during the school year, at least during M1, that's not something that I can sort of like really dedicate myself to. A lot of people spend the summer between M1 and M2 to do research and really delve in really deep. And you can find a whole host of research experiences, whether it's here at OSU or outside of OSU. And you can get paid or not, whatever. So there's a lot of different options. So doing research during the school year is an option, but also over the summer as well.
Yeah, I did what Jennifer said. I kind of set up research opportunities during the first year, but I didn't technically do research first year. And then I spent most of the summer doing research. And it was a pretty long summer, so I got a lot done, and it kind of set up a lot of opportunities for my second year where I continued to do research because I kind of had a better handle of what was going on, was very comfortably able to handle schoolwork and volunteering and research. And I don't think I'm at a disadvantage now because I had a productive summer and kind of established everything. I feel like I'm on track to have a lot done. So people do research first year, not a ton, but it's definitely possible, and you're not really going to be an anomaly if you don't. Or if you don't do research at all. I know lots of people who don't do research.
I think someone had a question on how the rings worked. I figured the M1s and the M2s could answer that, just because I know they changed stuff around since like me, Kenny, and Rachel have had it. But I just figured I'd throw that out there for you guys.
Rings in terms of like M3 rings or like
rings? Sorry, blocks. I'm sorry.
Oh, blocks. Oh, yeah. So yeah, blocks have changed a little bit from like what the current M3s and like M4s have done. So essentially, Foundations 2, which is the second block of medical school, it starts in like, I guess like mid to late September, is shortened. Your neuro block, which will be the first block of second year, is a bit shortened than what it previously was in the past. And I'm not gonna lie, it can be a challenge to sort of, med school's already at a challenging pace. So when things get a little shorter, everybody's a little perturbed, to say the least, but it's very doable. Utilizing your classmates as well as your instructors has really helped, as well as the one thing that I don't go to lecture. And what I started doing, which really helped with my efficiency, and that's one thing that I feel like medical school helps you do, is learn how to be more efficient, is I just, I watch the previous year's lectures and put that on like 2 or 3 speed. So to really get through as much material as possible when I feel like I'm in a crunch for time, or during those blocks where it's like neuro, for example, where there's a lot of material and you don't have exactly the same amount of time as students may have had in the past. Watching the lecture from like the year before, they're not really changing that much stuff, to be quite honest, so that helped. But most blocks are usually 7 weeks or something like that, like 6 or 7 weeks, with the exception of neuro, which is a bit longer, and cardio pulm. And then the last block before everybody goes into dedicated step 1 study period is host defense, which goes from December until the end of February. So yeah.
To help kind of answer Divya's question about COVID, that has affected all of us from M1s to M4s, just especially kind of where it hit as far as in the year. So for M4s, it was right, and I'm sure Rich could talk about it too, right? Or like right before match, right when some M4s are trying to figure out and finish their rotations and electives for graduation, all the requirements. For Bruno and I, for M3s, it was kind of right in the last third of our ring of our clinical experience. M2s, it was right during their step time, and M1s during, what are you guys doing now? You guys doing endo repro? Sorry, it's been a while.
We're in endo, yeah.
Endo repro, okay. But I've been in a lot of conversations, a lot of communication with some of our faculty, just because of like sitting on the part 2 committee and all that. And I think that the administration is doing as best as they can, especially given this is a new situation for them as well. And, we're all medical students. We all want answers, and we all kind of want to figure out what's going on, but they're doing their best to communicate changes and updates. So we get emails twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, from the dean's office, just about new updates to our class or just school in general. But as soon as the stay at home and all those different orders came in place, Bruno and I were pulled off of rotations along with Rachel. All the lectures and things were kind of moved offline, which really is kind of already done. But now we're seeing that some of our experiences in May are also going to be delayed. So we typically start part 2, so 3rd year with all your rotations in May. But now that has moved to be a completely like out of clinic experience. So you're still starting 3rd year, but you're not going to be in the clinic. And same thing with us starting 4th year, Bruno and I, we don't have any like real clinical experience until June. We can do some electives and things that are more like longitudinal and online in May, but yeah, so no clinic for us for the time being until June.
I think if I can add a point to that is that the faculty also have been holding town halls. So via Zoom, they are updating students real time. And then Dr. Rocco, our dean, actually held up his personal cell phone number so that any medical student who wanted to reach out to him could actually contact him directly. And I think that's pretty unique. I don't think that happens at most medical schools, especially when class sizes are 200 people. And then for the 4th years, it was really disappointing. We don't get to graduate in person or have match day, but Ohio State's done a lot of virtual celebrations. So they still try to make it really special, given the circumstances. So I think that just speaks to the community at Ohio State and how much they value their students here.
For the M1s, at least, it hasn't really changed a whole ton. Most of our lectures are online pre-recorded, and probably only about 10 to 15% of the class actually went to the in-person lectures. The main difference is that our LP, the clinical time where we're with a preceptor in their clinic once every other week for about half a day, that's been kind of pushed off, and we'll just end up doing more of that this fall once they kind of open things back up. And then we have our LG, that Learn to Doctor class is now all online, but it's not a really huge difference. It's affected us a lot less than the other blocks. But even then, the block leaders for Endo Repro have had some town halls to see, all right, what ways, even though things are kind of a little weird right now, what ways can we make it just a little bit easier for everyone going through all of this.
How much do you guys get to do during your like you called it I guess your rotations, not for third year, but when you're in M1 and M2 and you get like that clinical experience, like how involved are you with patient care at that point?
I feel like it kind oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's cool. You got it.
Okay. I feel like it depends on the site that you're at. I've heard from a lot of my, like, I don't want to say colleagues, but the other students in the class, that there's a really wide variety of experiences depending on where you're put. So I'm in a family med clinic, which has been actually really, really helpful. And they kind of like let you gradually get into it. So we start out with just like taking vitals, doing blood pressure, like easy stuff like that. We're supervised. We definitely always have like our preceptor to ask questions to. And it's pretty like gradual. And then as you go on, you learn more parts of interacting with patients, and they give you more independence as time goes on. So like I started pretty much just kind of like shadowing my preceptor, and then ended up like right now I go into rooms by myself. So I take full histories, and it's just practice for later in M3.
I was pretty
And
involved in
I'm sorry, go ahead,
my,
buddy.
okay, sorry. I was pretty involved in my LP experience as well. I was in a neurosurgery clinic. Um, and same thing, you know, they kind of just threw me in the fire at the beginning, which was fun. They were very complex patients, and I was really horrible at like interviewing them. And, you know, and by the end of the LP experience, I was like a little below average at interviewing them. You know, like it takes a while, but they don't expect too much out of you. They just, you know, they're happy that you come in, you try, and that you get better. And they do, like Annie said, kind of give you more of like graded responsibilities as you get better. I do know people who had like LPs in urgent care or the emergency room, and they got to do a lot as long as there like wasn't a resident around who also wanted to do what they were doing. So like I have a friend who got to you know, like fix skin like, you know, lax and stuff like that. So yeah, and I guess it all depends on where you're at, but at the very least you get that you learn how to not be awkward in front of patients, because a lot harder than you think, even if you're just like, you know, a normal human. And you just kind of get a little bit more comfortable talking to people about, you know, these like kind of personal health problems that they're having. So I think that's the main point of LP, and you get good at that by the end.
And you, like the majority of our students do get placed in some sort of primary care, whether that's family medicine, whether that is urgent care, but you do get to preference. So to answer Aubrey's question, so you can like kind of put like Brune, you can put neurosurgery, you can, I had a friend who wanted to do CT surge, so he did that and he got in for his clinic for LP. So you can put those preferences, but you have to kind of think of, you know, if you want like the most general experience, you kind of want a family medicine or urgent care experience. But if you do want to see something specific, you absolutely can. And there's also like, if you don't have a car, like they're not going to place you like 20 minutes away where you have to like Uber there every other week. So you can kind of put in your, when you're filling out your preferences, whether or not you have a car, whether or not you can travel, kind of thing. Do they let you suture? Probably not. Maybe in your later, like when you're finishing LP, but like we're all kind of saying, it is quite an experience to kind of start out seeing a real life patient. I can remember my first LP day, my attending was like, oh, there's a patient in room 2, go see them. I just literally met this guy like 5 seconds ago, and I'm like, okay, I know literally nothing. And then the patient was very nice, but then she started crying, and it was this whole thing. So you have a lot of very interesting experiences. And like we're all saying, you know, they will kind of start you out at different places, but at the end of your LP experience, you should be kind of more independent, seeing patients on your own, presenting, and going back in to talk about things.
Yeah, so like you guys said, it really varies on where you're placed. I actually had 2 different sites because my first preceptor moved at the end of my first year, and that was in a neuromuscular clinic, so super specialized. And I think I got that because I preference neurology, so can definitely go from super specialized to just, regular primary care. And that was nice. I learned a lot about neuro and got really good at the neuro exam. But I didn't get to do, he would let me do patient interviews and I learned all that. But the next year this past year I did my LP, so longitudinal practice, what everyone's talking about, at the Nor Community Clinic, which is the free clinic that I help run. And that's an idea too, is you can work in free clinics, and usually you can do a lot more in free clinics because they're really reliant on students. So you'll probably do the whole patient interview and physical exam and a lot of stuff. As far as suturing, I saw someone ask that. I did have a friend who was in EM, and she actually did get to do a little bit of suturing, some cast setting. I wouldn't really expect that as the norm. But in your first 2 years, I think there's some other programs that have this, but I'm interested in ENT. So I did the ENT Mentorship Program, and that's obviously specific to ENT, but I got matched with a physician. It was in the OR every week, and that was a good way to learn suturing skills and that kind of thing. I think orthopedic surgery might have a program like that too. I don't know if anyone else can speak to those surgical subspecialties and mentorship programs, but those do exist, and I learned a ton in the ENT mentorship program, so that was a really neat opportunity.
I didn't personally do this, but I know I had a lot of friends interested in surgery, like orthopedics and ENT, and they have I think it might just be through cardiothoracic, but there's like a summer scholar surgery opportunity. So if you don't want to do research, or you already have some research lined up, you can actually almost do like a surgery rotation in the summer between M1 and M2. And my friends were completely closing in the OR during that summer. So that would be a pretty cool experience too, if that's something that interests you. I don't know if anyone actually did that here in the panel.
I didn't do the CT surge thing, but I have heard multiple people who've done the CT surge summer thing, and they also spoke really highly of it. If you're really interested in not specifically CT surge, but just a surgical subspecialty in general, it's actually a really great way to get some really cool OR experience consistently over the summer. There's research opportunities there as well, because you build these sort of relationships with the physicians that you're working with. So I didn't participate in that, but I've heard really great things about that. In terms of, I guess, sort of answering the LP question, I'll just sort of piggyback on what everybody said. It's very variable. And I tie this into a question by, I think it was Aubrey in the chat, in terms of, do you get a preference for LP? So you do get to sort of, I think within the first couple of weeks of M1, they let you sort of say or I think it's over the summer, before you even start school, you get to sort of say what specialties you'd be interested in LP. A lot of it is also what's available. So even though you're oh, I really want to do CT surge or something like that, you may not get CT surge, but that doesn't mean that your experience at LP, if it's not in exactly what you might be interested in, will be any less fulfilling. I'm sort of a unique case. I was able to, I was initially matched into neurosurgery for my LP, but it turned out that the LP preceptor, he had received 2 students, but his practice wasn't didn't have enough patient volume at the time, because he was a new neurosurgeon to OSU. So I was able to go and speak with Diana Boehner, who is the LP coordinator, and let her know that I'm actually interested in OB and that I'd really love to be paired with an OB. And I have had a really great experience being paired with my LP preceptor, who is an OB. And in terms of sort of the hands-on experience that I've had, I've been able to gain a lot of experience in terms of like ultrasounding and learning like all the sort of subtle details about an OB visit, as well as like a women's health visit, and being able to do things with my LP preceptor, especially because she knew that I'm actually interested in OB. So I guess this kind of ties back into the fact that you definitely can express your feedback. And if there's a person willing and available, a physician in particular, in terms of LP, then they may be able to switch you. But I know a lot of people who might be interested in like surgical subspecialties who are in like family medicine, and sometimes they actually have a more robust experience because you get to do a little bit more, and it helps you prepare for your OSCEs and things like that. So LP may not be exactly what you want, but it can still be a really, really fulfilling experience.
I can talk a little bit about, we brought up kind of some of the mentorship programs that orthopedic surgery does, and also some of the different surgical specialties. I know ophthalmology also does one, as well as several of the other groups. So I'm currently pretty involved in the orthopedic surgery mentorship program. And the way that that one works out, and I believe how the rest of them work out, is you're generally paired with a resident, and on their rotations, they're usually spending about a month to a month and a half in a bunch of different areas within that overall department. So like in orthopedics, a resident may spend a month in pediatric orthopedics, then a month in hand and upper extremity orthopedics, then a month in sports medicine. And the way that it works is that there's some requirements of, all right, well, once a month, we'd like you to go to one of the grand rounds where they just do a big presentation about a topic in orthopedics. Or once a month, we'd like you to go to a journal club where we talk about a paper in orthopedics. And then as much as you want, you're welcome to reach out to that resident, and you have to at least once per rotation follow them around in clinic and then in the OR. So it gives you a lot of extra experience within that field, both clinically and surgically. And at the very least, I know that's also how ophthalmology runs. I'm not as sure about the rest of them, but I'm pretty sure they all kind of follow a pretty similar scheduling timeline.
I saw 2 questions in the chat about sort of like global health experiences here at OSU. So I would just speak on that. I actually have not been on a global health experience, so maybe I shouldn't speak on it, but here I am. In terms of like global health experiences you can have first and second year, those are things that I actually looked into, and I just ended up not participating in. The main one that I know several students who have participated in is called what is this thing called? Wow, maybe I shouldn't speak on this.
Podemos?
But basically the student, Podemos, thank you. Oh my God. Hannah, did you do Podemos? Maybe you should speak on this.
No, I didn't. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Podemos. So Podemos, it's basically like people go either in the winter, like during Christmas break, or people go participate, in the summer after like M1 or something like that. And it's like a trip to Honduras, like a mission trip where people, I think it's usually around 2 weeks, and students will sort of do like clinical work and help at sort of like a hospital in like rural Honduras and stuff like that, and have sort of other cultural experiences interspersed with that as well. So I know several students who've done that and they really enjoyed it. In addition to that, there's also the opportunity for M4 students to do a global health elective. And I know many M4s that have done that, and also current M3s who are definitely looking forward to doing that if that's possible anymore. But essentially you can, from what I've heard, it's basically like you can pick sort of anywhere other than, anywhere where there's some sort of ongoing like safety related issue. So I know students like current M4s who went to like Tanzania. A lot of M4s have gone to Thailand in the past. I know other M4s who went to like Namibia or something like that. So there, some other people went to like, Argentina, and obviously you have like a lot of opportunities to do cultural stuff, but intermixed with that is actually being in the hospital. Students have like worked in, like in the OR and done things that are very specific to the specialty that they'll be matching into their M4 year. So that's something that is only open to M4s as far as I know, but it's something that a lot of people participate in because OSU is also kind enough to sort of offer, I think, up to like $2,000 or something like that for the funding for it. So it's a really great opportunity that a lot of students take advantage of.
Jacob had a question on how objective are the clinical assessments during M3 and M4. I think no matter where you go to med school, you're going to be stressed out about getting assessed during M3. I don't know how M4 works, but I would say you get graded on the effort you put in. So I guess objectively speaking, it's objective in that sense. Our attendings here are very invested in teaching. I don't think, or no, I had one attending who was like, kind of like invested, but she also became chair of cardiology at another institution during that time. So she was having all of her sign out meetings. So, but the fellow was phenomenal, and she led rounds and took care of all the teaching that was needed for the med students on service. And it was, you get it through quite a few people actually on each rotation, in my experience. Resources to resolve any issues that may arise during clinicals. I guess for we do have like a red button on vitals for like individuals who may have experienced like mistreatment, and the school does take that very seriously. They do look into that, kind of just going off the trend that we've always been saying. The school really does care about you as a student. And then otherwise, there's always a lot of if for some reason you're not meeting academic checkpoints because the clinics are too busy or something like that, or people aren't filling out your evals in time, most rings do assign some kind of like mentor in a way where you could get those things done. So I think we do have pretty good structure for third and fourth year, in my opinion. I don't really feel like it's anything's been unfair. I don't know. Kenny and Rachel can speak to that more though.
Yeah, like Varun was saying, a lot of, I think our third year grading is about 60% of it is based on your evaluations from your residents or from your attendings. So really, like, to get good scores, like some attendings are just going to grade you just how it is, and it's like a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being the best, 1 being the least. And like a 4 or like a 5 is typically where most students want to be. And for the most part, as long as you show up, you were invested, you're not like dozing off during rounds, you're not on your phone, which you really shouldn't be anyway, because like we're all professionals, right? We should all be respectful of people's time and whatnot. Like, you'll do pretty well. And the rest of the scores being from like your shelf exams and from quizzes and whatnot. But the bulk of your scores are from evaluations from your residents and your attending. So yeah, as long as you're like a nice person, and as long as you're invested, come to work every day on time, not late, not like half asleep, you're gonna do fine, honestly. And like Varun was saying, so there is a big red button on vitals, which I'm sure you all have seen. Well, you guys haven't seen it yet, but we've all seen it. We're also working on a way to have one-way evaluations. So if you're on service with somebody and you don't feel comfortable evaluating them, but you want to send an evaluation for them because you felt mistreated or you observed mistreatment, you can do that. Not that this happens very often, okay? So this is not something that happens very often. But these are all kind of steps that we're taking just so that we can ensure that our students are in a very professional environment, that they're taken care of, and that they're supported in every way that we can.
So someone asked about how we've been satisfied with the COVID-19 response by OSU, given how step and rotations have been screwed up. I think they've done a good job. They're not, these like all-knowing people who know things that are who are going to be able to predict the future, and they have been very open with what they know in that moment that directly affects us and what they're planning to do to fix it. So for example, like, I can't imagine the amount of stress the M2s are under, but at the same time, the school is, I'm seeing the emails, at least they're sending us with all of the classes involved, and seems like they're taking a good look at, how the stress of taking step 1 during potential rotations could impact them. So I know they're having open communication with them, with us, with the start of M4, like my away rotations are being canceled and delayed, and my sub-I is being delayed. And, they're working with us. They're giving us opportunities to, for example, May, you can either take it as a month to study for step 2, or, if you're I wasn't planning on doing that then though. So they have other options for rotations that count as electives. So it may not be the neurosurgery rotation, but, I'm doing a pandemic and disaster response advanced competency in May. And because of that, I can cancel one of my electives that I scheduled in March and just have more room in the schedule because they're giving me that opportunity. I think, yeah, I want to say that's all I have to say about that. Maybe one of the M2s can talk about their steps.
Yeah, I can talk about that a bit. So a lot is obviously outside the control of the administration. Us M2s right now, our problem is Prometric continues to shut down, and Prometric is what we take step 1 through. So they're now closed through April. I was originally supposed to take step tomorrow, but now I'll be taking it hopefully in May. So that's obviously outside of the control of the administration. Like Varun said, they send out emails. It feels like every day, but they've like committed to bi-weekly emails, or 2 emails a week actually. And so they update us constantly with that, and they've been having the town hall meetings for us to give feedback. We were supposed to start rotations in May. I don't know if this is true, but I heard the AMC is the reason why we can't start, among other reasons. I don't think med students are allowed to be in the hospitals right now at this current time, but us M2s, or I guess when we start as M3s, we're doing a pandemic and disaster medicine elective. I don't know if it's the same one as Varun, but we're all required to take that now. But it actually looks pretty interesting. Since we can't be in the hospitals, we're required to do a little bit of volunteering with the Ohio Department of Health through it. Not in person, but, like patient tracking and virtual things, which is kind of exciting. So, it's unfortunate that we can't start rotations in May, but it's not the administration's fault. So I think they honestly, I'm amazed at how well our dean has handled this. I think she's ICU pulmonologist. So I don't know if she's working clinically right now, but it seems like she's like 24/7 working on curriculum and trying to help us. So I've been impressed. It's a crappy situation for everyone, but I really feel like they've been doing the best they can.
To answer Allison's question, so a lot is still unknown about what things are like for you guys as far as orientation and when M1 will start. As far as I know, things will still start as normal for you guys in August. But with a lot of it, it's still unclear. I think that a lot of the administration is kind of figuring out right now what's happening as far as when our surge will hit here in Columbus and what that's going to look like as far as how we treat our students and what we're going to do. So if it hits, in May or June, it's mostly just going to affect M2s. Well, they're going to be M3s at that point, and then M4s. So and for our rotations. But it's really hard to kind of look forward to see what it's going to look like in August. I would love to give you an answer that yes, you'll start on time, but I don't even think that our administration and people like way above us, I don't even think they know that. So I'm sorry if that makes it more confusing, but we don't know either.
I guess I'll, for Divya's question, what's one thing we wished we had known about OSU prior to committing, good or bad? I guess kind of like sort of giving you an answer to this. This is more just general advice for picking a med school. So the way I like to classify med schools in my head now is, are you going to med school or are you going to med school plus? When I mean med school plus is, are you going to med school plus a lot of other things that do to like enrich our curriculum? We're one of those schools where we do have a bunch of other things. You know, we have a mandatory QI project we have to do during third year, fourth year. We have a community health education project during M1 and M2. We have learning communities. We have LG, which is that little group you have once a week. There's a lot of extra stuff just outside of the main medical school curriculum. And you know, I think in the moment, you know, everything outside of your, you know, immediate stuff for studying for school is always annoying, but you know, it actually has been super helpful when you kind of get out of that realm. So I think so just knowing more about that kind of stuff wherever you go to a school, I think is good. You know, I think these are enriching experiences, but you have to want to do it. So like, if you don't want to do it, you should, you know, look at a school that is, you know, kind of strictly just, you know, your classical med school, and that's fine too. So I think that's just something you should look at in general when you're looking at these schools. Do you like all of the extra stuff that a school has to offer, or do you want a school that's just like strictly, you know, kind of a classical curriculum based without a lot of extra stuff? But I think the extra stuff, like I said, has a lot to offer though. So my opinion. But.
So I have to go soon, but I wanted to ask one question related to that. So I'm going to be very candid. Is Columbus lit? Like, is it a good time?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I wouldn't stay around here for like 7 years if it wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, Columbus is awesome.
I grew up in Columbus, and I actually went away for college and was like a little bit nervous about coming back, and it's just exploding. So even in the 4 years I was gone, it like grew tremendously. So I think you get a college town experience if you want that, but you also get a big city where you're not just around undergrads all the time. So you can pretty much pick and choose what you want to make it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Have a good day. Bye.
How much is the next?
I saw a question on the chat, someone asking about like in-state residency and stuff like that. So I can speak to that. I'm not an Ohio State resident, as I mentioned, so I was able to get in-state residency. It's not that complex of a process. I do think it just requires people to be a bit organized, so that you just don't sort of inadvertently mess yourself up to get the tuition decrease that we all need. So essentially, when it's fairly easy. The main thing that I did was just, I was told by older students that they may or may not request to see some financial documents. So it's not a requirement that they're going to ask you like about your financial, like to see your account statements and stuff like that, but they may. So the way that I sort of made sure that I did everything so I just wasn't having a lot of confusion when the time came, whether they asked or they didn't, is that I made sure that all of my like school purchases, everything for like my cell phone, for like car insurance or anything like that, my rent, stuff like that, all came from one specific account, and that I could show them very clearly, like, here, this is how I pay my rent at the beginning of like each semester, this is how I pay my utilities, blah, 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 so that it's all in one place and very organized. And then the big thing that I heard like a lot of people had issues with, was some people didn't get in-state residency because they were unaware that they needed to like file taxes in the state of Ohio to help with their in-state residency application. And I did do that. I mean, I know it's a challenge for some people because everybody does not need to file taxes. and my dad is a CPA, so that also is kind of why like I just did it anyway. But yeah, so that was one thing that I did that I heard a lot of people who had issues with it didn't do. So I would suggest just like filing taxes, even if you're gonna get like 2 cents back, just file your taxes in the state of Ohio if it's something that you can do. So that helps your application as well. And that's pretty much it. It's really not that challenging of a process. And if you have any sort of questions or anything like that, you can always ask Christine McDonough or Terrence Brown, who are like our financial aid people. They're really helpful in terms of helping students understand the types of things that may come up, making sure that you, like, if you're not from Ohio, you get your driver's license in the state of Ohio. If you have a car, you can register that in the state of Ohio. They kind of just want to see all these little things that make sure that you've actually been here and lived here and you're actually trying to be a resident here. So they're pretty simple things, like getting your driver's license. It's like $20 or something like that, and you can do it very simple, very quickly. So stuff like that.
To answer Mackenzie's point, like I'm not sure what HPSP military scholarship, if that is a particular one, but I have a good amount of friends who are on scholarship through like the Air Force, through the Navy, the Army, and I don't know if this is what you're talking about or not, but um, so as far as
it is what I'm talking about, yes.
Oh, okay, perfect. So they operate just like us. So they are in 10 classes with us. Like there's no real difference. The big change really is that a lot of them will have to do like officer training in the summer between M1 or M2 or before that, like before they start medical school. So one of my friends is through the Air Force and he did his officer training the year before coming to med school, and some of them, I have a couple other friends who decided to do the military scholarship after starting M1 year, so they had to do their officer training in that time between M1 and M2 year. But yeah, like other than like, you know, completing basic training and all of that, they pretty much operate just with us. And the big change really is start doing 4-year, and that like your aways, if you want to do military match, well, you have to, but I mean, like if you want to match in a military program, you have to do aways there, and your matches earlier. So those are more things that you think about more during 4th year. But as far as like the first couple of years, like they're really, obviously you're still a student here, so you're still going to get all the resources and everything you need. But you also do get a little bit of stipend on the side, which is a big thing of jealousy for me, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to head off, you guys. I'm trying to maintain a semblance of the Step 1 study schedule. So it was really nice talking to you guys. If you like have, I don't know, any more specific questions for me or anything like that, I don't know if you guys give out our email addresses or anything like that, but you can feel free to email me. So you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks.
Yeah, and we'll also be sending out the recording from this, as well as any other additional questions you guys have. Feel free to let us know and email us, and we'll try and get back to you as quick as you can if you have anything that pops up after this. But if anyone still has any more questions, feel free to throw them in the chat or pop in on the mic or anything, whatever works for you.
You can do rotations at both. So a lot of people, most people do their rotations here at OSU or nationwide, but there are options to do your surgery rotation or OB-GYN rotations at community sites, so like Mount Carmel or Ohio Health. I know the Grant ED is a hot spot for 4th year because it's just wild. So that's also a community site. So yeah, there are options. And then 4th year, they do have some rotations, like your primary care rotations that you can do, not at OSU as well. What do you mean by what are common places for away rotations, Divya? Oh yeah. So the advice I've been told about away rotations is like the time of the bi-coastal aways to, you know, like for the residencies that require aways is like a thing of the past, because you should do an away at a place where you want to go. If you decide to do an away, or if your specialty requires them. But, you know, for example, like if you want to stay in Ohio, like if you want to do a rotation at Cincinnati Children's for an away rotation in peds and you want to go there, you should do it. But if you don't and you like want to go to the West Coast or the East Coast, you should like try to do a rotation there.
I saw a question about free clinics. I can talk about that a little bit. So for the free clinics, there are steering committee members, which are usually first/second years, which you apply to. And for that, you run clinics, so organize volunteers. A few of you will run clinic that night, make sure everything goes smoothly, follow-up calls, that kind of thing. But then all medical students are also welcome to volunteer at the clinics. And the way that usually works is clinics usually open around like 5 p.m. and then go to like 10, sometimes 11 p.m. And those can fill up kind of quickly at the beginning of first year because everyone's excited to participate, but there's definitely plenty of opportunities. And like we said, there's clinic almost every night. So I volunteered a lot first year, and then I started running clinics. So kind of volunteered less, but still in clinic constantly. And really, really wonderful experiences. There are physicians who are volunteering there. You're obviously working underneath a physician, and they want to teach you a lot. So it's a really good way to brush up on patient interview skills and physical exams and kind of like running through a differential. And you kind of get a little bit of a glimpse into other parts of medicine, like how to write a referral and that kind of thing, how to acquire medication. There are also opportunities to volunteer in the labs at some of the free clinics, so you can work on your phlebotomy and mostly just blood draws. And hopefully that answers your question. It's a really great experience, and I think most people try to volunteer a little. Great learning opportunity.
I saw some questions asking about housing and whenever people start signing. So I would say usually happens in kind of around May, late April, early June is when a lot of people start really figuring out their housing. You all should have access to the housing scramble spreadsheet that I think the student council sent to all of you. So a lot of people will kind of link up with other medical students as roommates and then find places that are kind of close to the campus. Generally, people will live kind of directly south of the medical campus in that Victorian Village area, but also you're more than welcome to kind of ask people. There should be current students on there as well who are looking for roommates from maybe the M1 class if maybe one of their roommates was older and already graduated or housing situations changed. Yeah, Mackenzie, there should be a Facebook group for the admitted students that I think the student council sent out to everyone. If not, I can talk to some of their reps to get that resent out to everyone to make sure everyone has access to that.
I had a lot of friends who took a year off for an MPH or research or other things. It's super common. You just, whenever you're done with your requirements for whatever program you're doing, you would come back into the curriculum. Like I have a friend at the NIH right now, and um, COVID actually works out well for him because his contract was actually through May. And so given that, he can still do the first online rotation without having to delay anything for him. But I know like the MPH or the MBA, they will have you do most of the degree requirements in your year off, and then you would have to do like a couple things during your fourth year. But it counts as like an elective during your fourth year, so you get some credit for it during then as well. It's common for people to take a year off just purely for research without getting a second degree. Depends who you ask. Some people are big proponents of it, other people are not. But if you feel like you want to or you have to, I mean, it's never a bad thing. People do that here. People do that at other institutions. Like I said, I have a friend at the NIH who's doing that as well. So bunch of opportunities for that. But yeah, that's all I got for that.
There's like even some students who would just take off between second and third year just to take some mental health time, which is also totally fine. The school absolutely, no one's going to look down on you. No one is going to try to sway you away from that. Like the first 2 years can be very challenging, and going to STEP can be very challenging, and especially if you need extra time for STEP. You can enter third year a little bit late. That's absolutely fine if you want to take STEP during the summer instead of, in the early spring, like most students do. You can work with the third year coordinators to kind of have kind of like an augmented or kind of a very flexible schedule for third year. So you can start a little bit later and have some more time for STEP studying. That's something that is absolutely fine. No one's gonna look down on you for that if you need to take that time off.
I think one of the strengths of this curriculum is the integration of everything. You get a lot of, you don't, just do all of pharmacology for every system, which is cool, which is nice. You kind of do everything relevant to the block. I don't know. The weakness is it's just like every med school. There's a lot of minutia in the stuff you have to know. That so you have a lot of like you don't really know what you necessarily need to study. You kind of just study all of it. But I think it is a strong curriculum. Preps you well for STEP. We do have a lot of extra things built in, which can be an annoyance at times. But I think the curriculum is set up pretty well. I'm not sure what the curricular change in the past year did to that structure, but it's still like an organ system based curriculum. So maybe Hannah can speak more to that.
Yeah, I don't think it changed too much for us. Basically, like Varun said, it's in block systems. So you're on organ systems. So the first two blocks are just foundational science. Then you have MSK, cardiopulm, and then we did endo repro where the ones before us. So like Ken and Varun did neuro. So we did endo repro before summer break, and then after summer break we did neuro, and then GI renal, post defense. I feel like I'm forgetting one, but I think it's set up pretty well. I love the block system. Basically, you learn the normals for everything, and then you learn the abnormals. And there have been a lot of stuff like studying for STEP right now that I feel like we've learned basically everything we need to learn. There've been like random things that we had to learn for OSU that I thought were irrelevant, but then end up being in like my step prep and aren't in any other resource. I'm like, oh, maybe there is a reason they taught it that. But I don't think much has changed besides that. Like for instance, it's really integrated. So it's really nice to learn histology, pharmacology, everything basically for the organ system.
I think, Rachel, do you think you could take Brooke's question?
Okay, yeah. So talking about how we're prepared for to stand out in residency programs. So I think starting with clinical experiences early on in first and second year, you learn, kind of the foundation, how to talk to patients, learning the language. So by the time you get to third year on the wards, you're not just trying to master the communication skills, but you're actually able to master some of the more advanced concepts while applying the skills you've already developed as a first and second year. And then I think one of the great things about OSU, so it might be kind of annoying as an M1 and M2 when you have these extra kind of like LG, LP, all the activities stacking up, but it actually gives you a great portfolio to pull from, not only experience-wise, but also adding to your CV. So for example, we have to do a community health project between first and second year, and that was brought up in every single interview. So I think it's not only your skills as a resident and your ability to work hard and value education, but also you draw from these experiences that other medical students don't have, or they have to work really hard to integrate into their time. So I think Ohio State students are very well-rounded when we start residency, and I think we're very comfortable in a wide variety of clinical situations. You've basically been exposed to every field out there at Ohio State. So when you rotate through family medicine and pediatrics, you get to see subspecialties. You even in surgery, you get to see anesthesia, you get to see perioperative specialties. So you've seen a lot. You're very comfortable kind of adapting to new environments. And I think that goes a long way working with other residents on teams when you start residency too. So hopefully that gives you kind of an overview of how that works.
Answer Samantha's point about mentorship, that's something that's really huge, I think, for a lot of us. So, as an M1, you get an M2 mentor that you meet with during your orientation week, and there was a new fun thing that started at I hope the M1s enjoy, but there was like a house party and a house cup kind of thing that was started with the M1s, just to kind of facilitate camaraderie, and also you get to spend a lot of time with your mentor, and you get to kind of see how that progresses moving forward. So a lot of us have mentees that are M2s now that we're kind of trying to coach through STEP. Some of us have mentees that are M1s that we've met through different interest groups and things that we're kind of chatting with. So I think mentorship is really nice. It has a very solid foundation, and you can kind of see how it can evolve from year to year to year as each person, the mentor and the mentee, get more experience. So those are things that really do help kind of adjusting to medical school, and also trying to learn, what rotations are things that are really cool. What have you heard is a really easy fourth year rotation that everyone should do? Those are things that are kind of passed down just from word of mouth from your mentors above you, and just from the general camaraderie of the school, I think.
Yeah, I think there's mentorship at all levels, which is really great, both formal and informal. I was in Women in Medicine, and we ran a mentorship program with undergrads. So I've mentored undergrads who are pre-med, and then I have mentors who are like M3s or M4s, and then mentors who are residents, mentors who are attending physicians. It's really easy to find people in this environment who want to help you, and I think that's a strong suit at OSU for sure.
So I have some of the questions that were asked beforehand whenever you guys were registering, and I thought an interesting one that maybe might give some extra insight that we haven't really talked about yet is if any of the medical students could talk about some of the ways that they've engaged in the community in kind of a healthcare sense, beyond just the direct clinical experiences we've had.
Yeah, so um, the med school actually, in a nice way, forces you to do that, which is cool, which is good. In community health education during M1 and M2, you know, you pick up this project and you essentially do something to be able to educate the community in improving their health. My project was we looked at hepatitis B, undiagnosed hepatitis B rates in the immigrant Asian population here in Columbus. You know, we worked with the Asian American society here to help do that. And, you know, that was really rewarding experience because we were able to kind of tie that screening and treatment in with one of the free clinics. There are people who, what's that thing called? MD camp. You know, there are people who are in charge of something called MD camp. So that's an extracurricular thing, but what it does, it helps people from kind of underprivileged backgrounds learn a little bit more about medical school. And these are high school students. So, you know, they're really at this age where they can be influenced to choose this field if that's what they want to go into. So, you know, there are definitely a lot of opportunities, even otherwise too. You know, I'm in this organization called Think First, which is a brain injury prevention organization. And, you know, independently, I'm trying to kind of bring that into CHE because you're able to go to schools and talk to middle schoolers and high school students about ways you can prevent brain injury, you know, like wearing a helmet when you ride bike, don't text and drive, and things like that. So, and even there are people with like who are going into derm. I think one of my classmates is going into derm. She does this like skincare thing with the Columbus Girls School. I'm probably butchering these school names. I'm sorry, but you know, she's involved in the community though, also outside of the community health education project. So if it's something you want to do, you know, there are plenty of opportunities, and the community here is very receptive. So. I think there was an M4 who lived in like Dayton with her husband and just came to campus when she had to. So I think that's up to you, Jacob.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
And
Okay. I was just gonna say I had friends who like lived off campus, and it's definitely doable, especially because M1 and M2 year you don't have to be on campus every day. I feel like there are fewer days that you have to be on campus than you do. But still, I think people prefer the closer the better, especially if you have like an anatomy heavy week. It's kind of traffic isn't terrible in Columbus, but it's still a city. So I hate driving. So I would live as close as you could. Like I live across from Bruin, but we're like a 4-minute walk from campus, which is really, really nice. And I imagine once we start rotations will be awesome when I have to be at the hospital at like 4 a.m.
Yeah, something else to think about too, I would say a con of Ohio State is our parking situation. So sometimes it's like a little tricky to find parking. You have to be creative, but it's definitely doable. Like we had a lot of third year students when we had rotations here every single day driving like 15, 20 minutes, and they were able to find like cheap parking passes or ways to get around that. So I think wherever you feel comfortable, you'd be fine.
Any other questions from anyone?
I actually had one other question that was partially answered about the clinical rotations in year 3 and 4. So I was looking at it and it looked like certain specialties only have a couple of weeks. For example, neuro, I think was like 3 weeks. And then you had during that ring, a couple extra weeks for electives. But how do things factor in with advanced specialties or EM or way rotations? Did you think that was enough time to learn everything? And what opportunities were there for going back to certain specialties or having more time?
So I think it's pretty specialty dependent. So there's like during third year, you have required specialties you have to do. So like you said, like neurology, psych, IM, things like that. For example, dermatology, there's no third year rotations. So you need to be a little bit more proactive in facilitating shadowing experiences. If you want early exposure, I think derm might be one of the only ones, and maybe radiation oncology. Otherwise, you can pretty much, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone else, have elective time in the specialty when you preference during third year. And then fourth year, they're really good about making sure you get exposure in the field that you need. So we do something called a sub internship, which is kind of like your big fourth year rotation in whatever field you're doing to get your letters of rec. And everybody gets that. Like that's guaranteed. You may not get the specific month you want, but there's no way you wouldn't get that rotation. So I think Ohio State does a pretty good job facilitating those rotations. And then you can also, again, people are very amenable to shadowing, especially when you're in M1, M2, to kind of explore fields, which is a really great way to get some more exposure.
I think they're building more study spaces. It can get a little crowded at times, especially when all the undergrads are here, if I'm going to be very honest. But usually that's like, honestly, like at the peak study times. And unfortunately, I don't know, however you look at it, we study past the peak study times. So, you know, usually in the evening, there's plenty of space, even on the quiet floor in prior. Yeah, so.
Yeah, we also have Graves, which is basically just for med students, which I don't really study in because it's windowless and it makes me sad. But there is like some space, like there's a keypad, so you have to be a med student to get in. So there's always that. But yeah, I think they are building like a whole new health sciences center, so there should hopefully be even more space. But OSU has tons of libraries. Some of them get a little crowded, but if you ever want like a change of scenery and you don't want to see other med students, OSU itself has other libraries you can obviously use. And there's a lot of good places around. I know Columbus has a ton of public libraries. Some of them are like brand new too, which can be kind of nice and aren't that far. A lot of coffee shops. So there are other options.
All right. Well, I got to jump off, everybody, but you know, thanks for all your questions. If you have any other questions, you know, like good luck, make your decision. Hopefully, we'll see you all here in the fall.
Yeah, and it looks like the questions are starting to kind of slow down a little bit. So maybe if we just want to pitch forward our last little bit of advice for picking a medical school, going to medical school, and then we'll kind of finish it out for the day. So I guess I can start with that. Probably the biggest thing that I would say picking a med school is go to the place that you feel most comfortable. Like at the end of the day, medicine's medicine. Like the majority of the scientific information is going to change regardless of where you go. Go to the place that like you see it as a place you can be happy while you're also spending a big chunk of a lot of days studying in a place that it seems like you fit with the kind of people that there are, and go from there. One of the biggest things I've noticed since I started medical school is I never realized just how much I would love the experience. And frankly, I'm having way more fun in medical school than I had in undergrad because everything is just super relevant and super cool, super fascinating. I love all the people. It's great all around. And my roommate's dancing in the background. He's a med student too, so it's awesome.
I can go next. I mentioned I was deciding between two different med schools, and I have no regrets that I chose Ohio State. Go somewhere where you feel supported and the people around you are great. I have made so many great friends here. I can't imagine meeting people as awesome as the people I've met here. I don't know if I should say this, but you guys, I think your class, I think this is the first class where step is pass fail. Step one is pass fail. So make sure you're going to a school that has, it might be important that you go to a school that has a good reputation since you're not relying on step one scores anymore. And Ohio State has a good reputation. So I would factor that into your decision. I think unfortunately prestige is going to come in more, and just know that OSU is a good place and is known to be a good place around the country.
I can go next. Yeah, you know, you've heard for the last hour and a half how awesome OSU is, so I hope that you all can make the decision to become a Buckeye. You can finally use the in front of your name if you want. That's totally okay. But I think that like the one thing I want to pass on is that I try to tell all people who are going to think about medical school and before they start is just, you know, have a schedule for the first 2 years. Make sure that you stick to it because that way you can have more time to enjoy for yourself. Time management is something that's so important to have as a skill in medical school because it's just so independent as far as your learning, which if you want that to be, that's totally fine. But for the most part, you know, you can do lectures whenever you want. You can wake up at noon and work until 10 p.m., wake up again at noon, do your thing. Or you can wake up at 4, do your thing until 2 in the afternoon and be done. So have a schedule, stick to what you're going to do, and it all works out eventually. You can get to the point that Rachel's at where she's matched and she's just chilling. So we get there eventually.
Yeah, so I think you guys are all awesome. Obviously, you've all gotten into medical school, so I don't think you can go wrong. I think Columbus is an amazing place to spend 4 years. I think, like everyone's saying, the people are amazing, and if you choose Ohio State, I don't think you'll regret it. So we hope to see you all next year if you choose us. If not, maybe we'll see you some point in residency.
Yeah, I would say my last bit of advice is just go with your gut, because a lot of the times, like, even if you can't verbalize how you're feeling, your gut always knows. And my gut told me to go to Ohio State, and you know what? I've never looked back. So go Bucks.
All right. Well, I think that's all we've got from us today. If you guys have any additional questions, I think Nicole said she would send out our emails to all of you guys, and also a recording of this meeting if you had any things that you wanted to listen back to or anything like that. But we're all more than happy to help if you have any questions with anything, and hopefully we'll see you all next year. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.